Hello, welcome to the morning after show. My name is Joshua Reimer. Many of you know me as Roto Radar Reimer. I am joined by none other than Jared Block, who is on my right. Jared, I know you had a better night than I did last night, at least when it came to watching sports, right? Your Bucks did pretty well. We're gonna recap all the games, but tell me how your day overall was yesterday.
Tuesdays are, my technically my the only day that I have off besides Saturday now. So it felt good to watch the basketball. Definitely looked awesome to see the rings. I know I still wasn't able to be there in person, but it still was an awesome time to see my team and double down on the fact that we were able to start the season off with a win against possibly the best team in the league in the Nets. So it felt really good to see that happen, even despite Drew Holiday going down. By the way, he his heel is actually okay. He doesn't have to
Good.
do surgery or anything.
Awesome. Sweet. Good to hear. Yeah. Super interesting. Uh, uh so I love to see the Nets lose. Like I hate that team. I have to hate that team. So seeing you guys win was definitely a good thing for me. Seeing that Drew Holiday went down was kind of a good thing for me. I never want to root on an injury, right? But I did have under 6.5 assists for Drew Holiday yesterday as a bet. So cash that easy, right? Like he went out so early that it really didn't matter. It was locked in. Here, the second bet I had in this game was Kevin Durant under 31.5 points. And if you know Jared, Kevin
Yeah.
Durant scored 32 points, man. What, like, bad beats to start out the year are the worst. And that one hurt especially. That one hurt a little bit.
Yeah, it certainly did. That would have had to have been in the early fourth quarter, right? Or like
Yeah.
mid fourth.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, so this will come when we get to the technical foul section, which is our new
Okay.
flag on the
All right.
play segment. But we'll talk about it soon. I don't want to give away anything that I'm gonna get into like a yelling situation once I get the technical foul because of how pissed off I am about this. But anyway, regardless, want to catch up with the chat. D Ramified says, "Sup fellas, how you doing?" Bacon says, "Good morning." D Ramified said, "I'm glad Drew is okay." So do we know like a return date for Drew? Is it going to be next game? Is it going to be next week? Like what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think it's too early to tell. From what I saw, they said that the MRI came back clear in terms of structural damage. Mike Budenholzer said last night that he had a heel contusion. So my guess is it's probably it normally in the middle of a season it would be day to day, but in terms of what we talked about yesterday with the Bucks playing so long, I think it's more of a week to week situation for Drew, which is fine for me. They have George Hill there. Giannis can be a point guard. Chris can facilitate. I'm not too worried about it, and I think even guys like Jordan Mora and Grayson Allen can take the ball too.
Yeah, that was my. I mean, we're about to get to the NBA recap segment, but like seeing Grayson Allen play for you guys he was good,
Yeah, dude.
man. He fit his
Yeah,
role
dude.
really well. So I know
Yep.
you're excited about that. I know I'm excited about that because I think he is a really good player, and I think that he just needs his spot to shine. I think he might have finally found it with the Bucks. So might be a little overreacting because it's one game, but certainly going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So I had the tilting thing about Kevin Durant, right? And then I had to watch the Lakers. And not only had to watch the Lakers, I don't know if you watched any of the Lakers game, but like
Yeah,
I
I
had
did.
I had to watch the Lakers like look absolutely amazing through two quarters, look okay through the third quarter. There was definitely some things that we were missing, and then just completely blow it in the fourth, man. Like it was absolutely insane game. I thought it was a really good game. I thought the Lakers played well outside of the last quarter. And honestly, the third quarter, we allowed too many 3 point shots. But it was just, it was a little disheartening. Like I said, I was upset at the end of the game. And then I realized, like, wait a minute. I literally have talked about this a ton, just saying that, like, it's going to take this team some time to meld. I have some thoughts on that game too, on what needs to meld for this team to be good. I still feel confident. Like Carmelo Anthony providing that instant offense off the bench is absolutely amazing. Anthony Davis looked as good as ever last night. LeBron looked in midseason form in the first game of the year. Like there was a lot of positives to take out of that game. I thought Kemp Bazemore defense was incredible throughout the first two quarters. I thought there was a lot of good things. There's definitely some bad things, but I'm encouraged at the very least.
Yeah, it's definitely encouraging to see. I mean, we knew this was going to happen a little bit to some extent, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
not too surprised. Melo definitely can fit that bench role, and if he holds that like sixth man kind of thing in this team, I think that that's a really solid start for them. They need to figure out what they're going to do with some of their wing players, just how they're going to fill in the rotations and things like that. How Rondo and Westbrook are going to make things happen. Westbrook probably the biggest disappointment out of the entire night in terms of um, just the ability to show up in a game. Maybe were we expecting too much from him early on? Because I think that might have been the case.
Um, Potentially. I just think it's going to take him a lot. I think it's going to take, he's going to be the person that has to get the chemistry right more than anyone
Sure.
else on this team.
Yeah,
Um,
makes sense.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this team develops, how this team looks. Because I mean, they even said it during the broadcast. I think this team will look completely different from now to halfway through the season and during the second half of the season. Like
Oh,
I
for
think it
sure.
looks like a completely different team. Vogel even talked about how he instituted like a new offensive game plan this season. And for instituting a new offensive game plan, I thought the offense looked absolutely lethal. Like getting used to that for the first game, you would expect some bumps in the road. There certainly were those bumps, but I do think that it's gonna look really good. Um, Bacon, Josh going back to Meld after Sean trying to rip him. Yeah, dude, Meld's like my favorite word of the year now. Like I can't not use it just because Sean said it wasn't a word. Um, I don't know if you saw this. We had a member in good skill chat when I said that Meld thing and Sean said it wasn't a word. There was a member. I wish I could find the exact message, but they said, at least you should know that Meld's a word after misusing apoplectic for 2 whole years. And
Oh,
that made
geez.
me laugh because, and for those Sean uses the word apoplectic a ton. It just makes me laugh because like Jared and I make fun of him for, or at least I make fun of him for using apoplectic wrong all the time. So I get a kick out of that.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Giannis, Chris, thanks for the sub, dude. Big win last night. Let's keep rolling. Yeah, it was a big win. My one of my comments here for this Lakers team is that they're going to, well, I mean, it's not really a topic of conversation right now, but my interest lies in how they're going to narrow their player pool down to like an eight-man rotation in the playoffs. Like, who do they leave out of that? Because I do think that there are going to be some surprises um, when it comes to that. I mean, they're going to be selective, right? But I still think that there are going to be some surprising players that get left out of that mix. If I had to guess, I would say DeAndre Jordan being one of them, probably.
Yeah, I will say Jordan wasn't that. I thought Dwight Howard looked great when he was on the floor. I don't know how I felt about DeAndre Jordan. I also don't know how I felt about the Lakers Anthony Davis center lineup. But you know what? Let's get into, and we've done enough intro stuff. Thank you all for hanging out with us. We're gonna get into the first topic, which is the NBA recap, and we'll start with the Lakers game first. I know it happened later in the night, but um, that Warriors team looked good, and I want to start out there because we've talked plenty about the Lakers already. We'll touch back on them after we talk about the Warriors here, but I thought the Warriors looked really, really good in this game. I think Bielitsa is fitting a role that he's never gotten before. And I think the
Yep.
broadcaster said it perfectly by saying it's almost like he's a second team Draymond Green out there. Like he has decent defense. I wouldn't say it's as great as defense as Draymond, but he plays that same role where he doesn't need to shoot. He can kind of be another facilitator and a big man facilitator almost. I think that the Warriors are going to be, I mean, we already knew they were going to kind of be a problem, but like they should be a really big problem once Klay Thompson is back.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good example. I would say that Draymond Green's more of a peripheral guy, but I do think that Bielitsa can bring the scoring. Not saying Draymond can't, because he just chooses not to. But Bielitsa can bring the scoring as well as get you those extra rebounds and assists when they're needed. And he also is able to spread the floor and be another guy that, if everybody's on Curry, there's another guy that can make threes. So actually, there's last year we didn't see this as much, but now there's a bunch of guys that can make threes if Curry's having a rough night, which he did not last night. He played very well.
Well, I mean, yes and no, right? Like, yeah, he got the triple double, but he even said it in the post game conference that he was like, I played like shit. And he
Okay,
was
well, it's up to his terms, sure, but like
no,
still look
like
at it.
I mean, like as a shooter in his role, he didn't do that well. He was cold last night. But like the fact that he got a triple double, the fact that he did everything else definitely pointed towards him doing well. It's just that like he did not shoot as well as he was supposed to, and yet the team was able to rally around him and still end up providing that scoring and getting him to that W. So like, I don't know. I really like what that team did last night. It makes me think like what would happen if Steph Curry shot well last night. Like what happens if the 3-point shot is hitting. It's a completely different story. You probably see Lakers not leading at halftime, and you probably see them closer to a blowout than they were at the end of that game. So I don't know. It is what it is. Um, I really like that Warriors team. Like what where seating wise in the Western Conference, where do you think this Warriors team could be as they get back Klay Thompson in December and Wiseman? I don't know when they get back Wiseman, but it's sometime soon.
Okay. I mean, I think that they're a top five. I can't say anything else other than that, just because we don't really know how any of these teams outside of these two have looked through one game. So, I mean, it's a very small sample size, but they came out, they played well. I think that we need more from, they need more from Wiggins, especially. And at what point does Jordan Poole take more of a role? Like he looked great last night. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think that if Wiggins just needs to show up, and if he doesn't, then I just feel like this team could slip a little bit. But Golden State is going to be top five in the East for me, or in the
Yeah.
West.
Yeah, definitely going to be a top 5 team. It's going to be interesting to see where they rank as long as injury bugs doesn't hit them. Um, the team's going to be good. When it comes to the Lakers, I think that like it's just a lot of the fact that a lot of these guys need to get used to the system, which is perfectly fine. It is what it is. It's going to take a while. You're going to see this team probably have a losing record through 10 games. We've talked about it a ton, but I think that is still true. Even though they did look good at parts of last night, I think it's still true that this team is going to need a while before they're fully good to go.
Yeah, we kind of expected this, which is why I liked the Warriors plus 3.5 last night. It felt like a pretty easy one. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think you guys or any Lakers fan should be worried about that at all. Like, I know obviously it stinks to lose the first game at home of the new year, but at the end of the day, this Lakers team isn't going for that first place in the West. Like I'm sure that they're going to say that, but at the end of the day, they're just going to get used to doing what they need to do in their own locker room, and then they're going to play the positional game of where they can find the best matchups for that team in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that this team is going to be just fine offensively. I think the chemistry that's needed for this team is on the defensive side of the ball. I honestly thought the offense looked great last night. Outside of Westbrook looking like shit, I think everything else looked amazing. I thought everyone else was filling their roles. Anthony Davis looked like that top 5 player that you need him to be. LeBron, like I said, looked in midseason form. You had a lot of, the main problem with this Lakers team is that they weren't able to hit threes. You saw a lot of Lakers able to hit threes. You saw Avery Bradley hit a couple threes at the end of the game. You saw Kent Bazemore hitting from out there. You even saw some other players hitting from out there like Carmelo Anthony. It's just, that defense is what's going to need time to come together, in my opinion, and learn under the Frank Vogel system. And once it does, I think this team is. They talked about it on the broadcast yesterday. Like this team has the potential to be just as physical as the 2019 team that won the finals.
Physical or physicality, certainly. I hope that I mean, for me, the one dark horse for them is how good is Avery Bradley going to be, and can
Yeah.
he be as good defensively as he used to be? It's been a few years. It's been probably 4 years since we've seen Avery Bradley really be that defensive juggernaut that he used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think he really would have changed the playoffs in 2019 if he did come to the bubble. He decided not to just because his son, he wanted to look out for his son when it came to COVID. He opted out of the season. So, like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Avery Bradley because I do think he's a dynamic player. And if he can play that defense and take those threes, then, like, he has a spot in the rotation even come playoff time. But
Yep.
it's gonna be interesting to see. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that like Taylor Horton Tucker is still missing from this team right now. Like, and Taylor Horton Tucker is I'm not gonna say fifth best player. I'm gonna say he's probably the starter over Kent Bazemore last night if he's healthy. Like he's going to be a very very important part of this team. and getting him back will be super important as well. All right, let's talk about your Bucks. Like they look good as ever, man. Like we kind of dissed them a little bit yesterday. I'm sure you heard us on the podcast saying that like we said they weren't going to win another title this year, but like they definitely tried to prove us wrong last night.
Yeah, I mean, I was concerned a little bit about the just length of time that they had off, and we saw that kind of effect. Not saying that the injury to Drew Holiday was the reason for that, but yeah, no, I mean a home game with the ring ceremony, with the full crowd, with everybody back at Pfizer Forum. I don't know. I didn't feel like people still disrespect the Bucks. I'm not calling anybody out, but it seems to be more of a nation thing, if not our entire Discord. So
Yeah.
they continued to disrespect the Bucks, and the Nets can't even say it was Kyrie Irving's fault because he didn't play in that series last year. So I think that Giannis came in and proved that he could do it in 31 minutes, and yeah, I mean everybody else kind of stepped up. The big two guys that stepped up for me, actually three of them. Pat Connaughton was a surprise last night. I don't think he's going to go for 20 points every single game. He'll probably go for 10, most of, like average around 8 to 10 points. Grayson Allen, probably the biggest surprise in terms of guys that stepped up in the starting unit that I wasn't expecting. I was hopeful that it was going to happen because they put in a lot of, uh, I'll put in a lot of trust paying him before he even played a second,
Yeah.
yeah, before he even dribbled a ball on the court. So that was good to see. And then obviously the guy that is going to be talked about for a while in DFS until his price gets changed, because I don't know when Bobby Portis is coming back, is Jordan Mora, who looked very impressive on both ends of the floor last night. Still got 26 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing bad to say about anybody on this team outside of, I don't know. I wish that I don't really know why they were playing some of the guys they were playing outside of just the blowout scenario, which is understandable.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to see what Jordan Noora can do. I thought he looked really good. Thought Grayson Allen looked really good. Already talked about him. Thought Pat Connaughton looked really good. I thought the team as a whole just looked really solid. Like you guys look good. And if Giannis is able to attack like that for the whole season, like he will be an MVP candidate once again. So it was a really good game from everyone. And I mean Middleton did his job, right? So like everyone did what they needed to do, in my opinion. And that's important when you face off against a team like the Nets that can go out and their two superstars can go and score 70 points any night. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know what defensively. I was a little worried at the beginning about this Bucks team because they weren't really covering that well or as well as I expected them to on some players, but I think they're going to be just fine. I think defensively, I'm still worried about this Nets team. I thought maybe we would look a little bit, or they would look a little bit improved because of adding guys like Paul Millsap and guys that would be better on the defensive end. But they are the ones who looked really, really porous on the defensive side of the ball. So talk about this Nets team. Like, are we overreacting too much by saying talking so badly about this Nets team so early?
Well, I think that they addressed some things in the offseason in terms of getting guys that are better on defense as a whole. That's going to take a little bit of time, probably. Lots of new guys, not as many as the Lakers, but certainly enough to be able to use the excuse of, hey, we need some more time to figure this out defensively. And again, this team was maybe they weren't, but I would assume that they were at least a little bit prepared to see Kyrie Irving back on the floor, right? But I mean, maybe they weren't at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day. Who knows? Um, yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't play better, seeing as James Johnson was in there, Paul Millsap was in there. I mean, I wish that it's kind of strange that he only played 5 minutes for what it's worth. I think he plays a ton more as the season goes along. But if they want to be better defensively, you need to definitely remove some of the pieces that were in last night, specifically guys like I'm going to call him out, but Blake Griffin. And I don't think you should have Aldridge in there as much either. So I don't know. Maybe this team figures it out, but there's still going to be a liability on the defensive end for a while.
Yeah, definitely seems like it. I don't know. It's just it wasn't a great look for me from that Nets team. And again, it's a regular season. They have a very similar script to what the Lakers have, where it's like this doesn't matter. They're a playoff team, and as soon as it comes to the playoffs, that's when KD, that's when James Harden will really turn it on and start doing really well. So it doesn't really matter the regular season for this team. But It is still, I still see concerning things throughout this lineup that worry me at least a little bit.
Sure. I mean, that's until we see more. That's kind of what we have to
Yeah,
say
right.
right now.
Like we're
Until we
one
see
game
something
in.
better.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're one game in. Plenty of games to still analyze for that team and for all four of the teams that played last night. But let's get into all the teams that play today and then get a little look ahead to today's matchups because there are a ton of games on this slate. You know, yesterday was a 2-game slate. Today is now a I don't know how many game slate because I don't have to research for it, Jared. I am off today. You are on the NBA GPP package. So how many games do we have on tonight's slate?
Yeah, the last time I counted, there was 10 or 11. So
Yeah.
I'll give you the exact number here in a second. I'm just pulling all the stuff up again. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Okay.
11.
We're both counting. Yes, 11. I think it is 11. Um yeah, it looks like a good slate. Like just looking at its surface level and looking at some of these matchups. Uh
Yeah.
no Ben Simmons for the 76ers should be interesting because we know that he is going to be out for the season opener. This Timberwolves game is definitely going to have a lot of points in it, and so
Yep.
is the Trailblazers game. So, what
Yep.
game DFS wise are you looking forward to most?
Yeah, I think the one that I'm gravitating towards most is this Houston Rockets Timberwolves game. Total sits at 230.5, which is very solid. Looks like it's going to stay relatively close because frankly, I mean, these teams are just going to run, like they're going to sprint the entire game on both ends. So lots of young guys on both sides, lots of promising young stars on both sides, and there's definitely matchups to exploit there. I don't think any defense is played in that game. And talking about defense, I don't think there's any defense played in Portland or Sacramento either. So that's why you see those two stick out a little bit more. I think that there will be some, I won't say value, I'll just say like, I think that there's interesting spots for the Sixers with no Ben Simmons. I think they already kind of prepared to not have him on the team necessarily. So I don't know. I mean, New Orleans, we never really like to target them defensively, but they had a lot of pieces move around, and I think that's going to change this year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the Pelicans are without Zion too, so like it's just
Yep.
another injury
And Adams
piece to
traded.
where. Yeah, you're right. And Adams traded, so like just another injury piece that this Pelicans team is gonna have to deal with, and it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out. Looking for some other interesting matchups. I think Raptors versus Wizards could be very interesting. You got to remember, no Kyle Lowry in Toronto anymore.
Yep.
There's
Also,
gonna
no
be some.
Siakam today.
Yeah, no Siakam as well. So like things are going to open up for that Raptors team that could be good from a value perspective. No Cade Cunningham for the Pistons, so maybe you play some players there. And then you have Charlotte Hornets. You have LaMelo Ball, and you have that Hornets team, and you have the Pacers, and you have Brogdon who just re-signed. So like lots of good games. I feel like there's also a few narratives on this slate already, which it's exciting, man. I think this is going to be a good slate to start out the year on.
Definitely. I'm very pumped for tonight's slate. I'm going to be providing for the GPP side of things. Going to take some shots. Feel really good about it. There's really not much data we can go off of outside of historics and team changes and things like that. But this is the best time of the year to take those early shots, like you mentioned yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you have to almost, right? You have to use your basketball knowledge. This is the best time to play DFS, in my opinion, for NBA because it's all basketball knowledge. Like, there's no stats getting involved. There's really nothing else except unless you like try to rely on preseason stats, which is fine sometimes. It just doesn't work most of the time. Um, but it's just like it's all basketball knowledge, and I think that's great because it's a time that Sean and I can really shine. So super excited to see what you guys do with the NBA product. I feel kind of sad that I that I don't get to provide for the first big slate of the year, but I'm definitely happy to have my day off, so that makes me happy. Uh, Betting wise, anything pop out to you for this slate?
Sure. Let's see. I think that just at first glance, I mean, the over of Pacers Hornets should be not where it is. I mean, it's 223.5. I think that that game could end up being a definite shootout down the stretch, and Charlotte plays at one. I mean, so what Charlotte team or what Charlotte pace do you think we're going to have to start out the year? That's kind of what I want to find out.
I think it's going to be really fast this year. I
That's
think with
that's what I'm
Lamelo.
going with.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think with LaMelo Ball being like getting his first, he didn't have a full year technically because of the injury, but like with
yeah,
him getting his first year in and now being able to like actually groove with the NBA offense, I think you see a much faster pace than you did last year.
I could see that. I mean, so the other one that I feel very comfortable with, uh, I don't think New Orleans got any better this year. I think that they made a lot of pieces. They made a lot of moves to make sure that Zion's their focal point. But at the end of the day, we've also heard that he's not necessarily happy as well, and he's not even playing tonight. So I think Sixers minus 3.5 is way too low. I think that Joel Embiid comes out with a statement game tonight. He probably will be pretty highly owned in DFS.
Yeah, I like the take. Storyline wise, because I'm already seeing some narratives that I want to talk about. Like narrative wise, what's your number one thing to start out the year here? Not to start out the year, but for the second slate of the year, what's your number one thing storyline wise?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say Ben Simmons because that feels like the
The
chalk
chalky
answer.
answer, yeah.
Yeah, I okay. I mean, uh, what other things like I don't know. Nothing really sticks out that much to
Really,
me.
I
I
feel
mean,
like Kemba in the Garden against his
yeah,
old
I mean that's
team
there,
is
sure. Yeah.
juicy. I feel like
So
just like the Chicago, like it doesn't have to be necessarily narrative wise, but I think like storyline wise, like this Bulls team, seeing them for the first time with DeRozan on the floor and with all these changes they've made is exciting as well. And then also Pacers with the Brogdon, with signing Brogdon, I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch as well. So like I don't know. I think there's a
I'll
lot.
comment.
Maybe it's just because it's the beginning of the year too. Like I just think there's
I
so
mean,
many
yeah, yeah.
storylines to talk about.
I'll comment on that. So Boston has the potential to miss some guys due to COVID protocols. So that
Well, see, there you go.
already has started out with a bang in terms of this is why we can't do this is why we can't lock in plays at 10 a.m. in the morning
Yeah.
because this is definitely going to affect and it could even break after lock too. That's the unfortunate part of all this. So Boston going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Very interesting to see that they are underdogs, and I think that mostly the reason is um, because of that news for COVID. So I mean, the New York Knicks have gotten better too, and I think that people forget that they probably should have beaten Atlanta, even though Atlanta kind of took off towards the end of that series, but they had something there. Now, the thing that I think is going to totally, it's either going to fall, like I'm going to fall flat on my face for this, or I'm going to be right. And I think that Chicago Bulls are underwhelming to start off the year tonight.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like the same narrative that the Lakers have to a more extent because it's better, it's like more important pieces to the lineup, right? Like I think that you will see this Bulls team be underwhelming. I feel like they're perfectly lined to be, I said overwhelming. They're going to be underwhelming. I think they're perfectly lined to be underwhelming too because you're going up against this Pistons team. You're just 5 point favorites. Like I feel like a lot of the industry will bet that. I thought about betting it earlier this morning when I first looked at odds and everything. I don't know how to feel about it. So what are your thoughts? -5 here for the Chicago Bulls, according to our friends over at Bet Online. Do you think it's a good line? Do you think it's a little bit too soft? Like what are you thinking here?
This feels like a classic trap spot. Well, personally, I stay away from this type of thing. But if you had to tell me to pick one side, I actually would pick the Pistons probably.
There you go. Probably the contrarian side to go with as well. All right. Let's talk about, or is there anything else that you want to talk about in this look ahead segment? I mean, there are plenty. It's going to be a great slate. I can't wait to listen to the podcast today because the NBA podcast is just going to be fire with you and Sean. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. One thing that isn't awesome is the last game of the slate, which is Denver versus Phoenix. Great game to watch from a basketball perspective. I'm excited to see what happens with the Suns and how they bounce back from that loss in the finals. Uh, I'm also interested to see how healthy this Nuggets team comes out. And finally, I guess another storyline that could make some sense here. They are still trying to figure out what to do with DeAndre Ayton, and he's not happy. He also
Mm-hmm.
wants who was the player? Oh, he wants. So the story came out that DeAndre Ayton wants an extension like Trey Young got now. So I just I don't understand. Those players are completely different, and Trae Young deserves that. While I don't think Ayton deserves it.
Really? So do you think like Ayton deserves the max contract that he's asking for? Like not I don't think maybe not the Trey Young one because like the Trey Young one was a lot of money. I don't know, are they the same? Like are they the same
No,
maxes?
well, I don't know. I think
I
that
don't
if
know
he's
either.
asking for Trey Young money, I don't think he's going to get it in Phoenix at least.
Do you think he gets it somewhere else? I guess is my main question.
If a team is no, I don't. I don't.
Wow. I man, maybe it's just from like I so when I play 2K, we have a lot of time today. We have so much time to fill, so I can talk a little bit about personal stuff. When I play 2K, I usually don't play my player. I usually don't play my team. I usually end up playing the my franchise mode. It's the same thing I do with Madden. I like making my own team. I like doing the fantasy draft and everything, and like going about that. And every time I do a fantasy draft, DeAndre Ayton's one of those really high picks, and he ends up being like an absolute stud, superstar, just because in that 2K they had his potential so high. I always think about that when I. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw this stuff about DeAndre Ayton. I I feel like he was an important part of that like championship chemistry for this Suns team last year. I guess it wasn't championship chemistry, but like it was important for DeAndre Ayton was very important to this team. I feel like it's a little disrespectful not to like at least have a conversation with him. It feels like they just shut him down though. That's how mad he is. Is that it seems like they just shut him down and like there was no other talks to be had. But like I hope they extend him, man. I think he is a really solid young center. I think he's one of the few like big man centers that we're going to have in the NBA that can still be successful.
Yeah, so for me, I'll pull it up. He wants five like something comparable to 5 years, 172 million, which is what Trey Young got. Now, it's also worth noting that Mikal Bridges got an extension in the offseason for 4 years, $90 million. It's also worth noting that Michael Porter and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander got similar deals. Five for 172 for Shea, and then five for 172 for Michael Porter. Do you think that Michael Porter deserves the money more than DeAndre Ayton does? Because I think I side with Porter 9 times out of 10.
I think I side with Porter as well. I'm curious how much this has to do with. Hold on one second. Trying to get this pulled up. Not really. He's on a. I was gonna say like is Devin Booker up like next year or something? Like, do we have to sign Devin Booker back really soon? Is that the reason that we're going to through this, or is it maybe just the fact that you signed Chris Paul to a monster deal and like you have to
Yeah,
pay him
yeah.
out for the rest of his time here? Like I think that it comes to a point with every NBA team where it's just like wow, we've spent a lot of money, and now this
Yep.
rookie who has played really well for us has to get paid out, and it's just not gonna happen, man. Like we're not able to pay him.
Yep.
So
See, I
I
was
don't
gonna
know.
say this is what happens. This is what happens when two small market teams get to the finals.
Yeah,
One, they
for
both
sure.
go all in to get there, and they're banking on finals revenue and playoff revenue to make ends meet for future seasons. It worked for one team, it did not work for the other, and I'm really interested to see what happens moving forward. Because if this was flipped and the Bucks had lost that would be terrifying for the city. And I know that Giannis is going to play. Like people are going to be gravitated to go there just because he's there, but it also means that they have to give up a lot, which they were actually able to keep the team pretty much together. Now the
Which is
Suns were
awesome.
too, but it's going to be really interesting to see what happens further than this year.
Are the Suns in your eyes a team that is going to be competitive in a healthy Western Conference?
I still think they're a playoff team. I think
Yeah,
that with Chris
I would
Paul
agree.
and Devin Booker there, they're I think a lot of those guys played above their head a little bit that were peripheral pieces. Mikal Bridges had a fantastic year. They had some, big men go down later on, which is why, DeAndre Ayton was expected to do so much. But when it comes down to like, I don't know, like when you're playing a team that has a big center, which a lot of the teams in the West do, they don't really stand a chance in terms of just being able to defend that. So maybe that's why Phoenix is hesitant. I don't know. That's probably a bad reason, but at the same time, like I think that they are a playoff team. I just can't really say how much. And that last year kind of felt like the year that they had to do it.
Yeah, like you called the Warriors top 5 team earlier in this show. I agree with that
Yep.
take that they're a
Yep.
top 5 team, but I don't think you can say the same thing about the Suns team. Like I don't feel confident in saying that the Suns are a top 5 team in the Western Conference if the Western Conference is fully healthy. It's a big
Yep.
if because there's going to be plenty of injuries that happen throughout the year, and we'll just have to see how that plays out. Before we move on, I want to talk about one last little headline that we saw just a couple days ago. Did you see the Marvin Bagley stuff?
I did not.
So Marvin Bagley, he was due for that contract extension as well and did not get it. The Kings informed him that not only is he not getting that contract extension, he's also not going to be in the opening day rotation. And
I
so his manager or his agent
did
took
it
to
now.
Twitter and said, this is absolutely insane. Like you don't sign us because you say he has no value, but you don't trade us because you say he's like too valuable, and then you don't include him in the rotation in opening day. So like it's really interesting to see this Marvin Bagley stuff play out. And I think the quote that was had by that agent, let me see if I can pull it up here because I don't want to misquote him. Um uh, I don't know. It was something about like this is a case management situation of a mismanagement for the Kings, a case trial and mismanagement for the Kings. There you go. That was the tweet. Um, this is a case study in mismanagement by the Kings organization. Like the Bagley was such a promising prospect coming out of Duke, and they took him with what the number 2 pick, the number 3
Yep.
pick. Like he was a very
Number
high
2.
draft pick. They took him over Luca. They took him over
Yeah,
Trey.
that's a rough look now.
Yeah, like it's not a pretty look for this Kings team.
No, it's not. And okay, I mean yeah, the biggest thing here is his health, and that's really the only thing I think that's holding him back. Now, he had his moments when I don't know. He had his moments when he was healthy. He's been healthier lately. I know he missed a lot of last season with a broken hand, but he still came back and played decent down the stretch there. But the Kings are just a bad team. They're just a bad organization.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it comes down to as well. I mean, look at where the other guys went. I guess that they just felt like they were a little bit more encompassed in building around their players. And I don't think that the Kings are building around Marvin Bagley at all. So
No.
I don't know. I mean, it's weird that he didn't. I guess they have every right to be upset with this, but if it's that bad, just trade the dude, and that's kind of where the frustration lies there.
Yeah, exactly. Like here, so let me read the full quote that Jeff Schwartz has, his manager. Sacramento has informed Bagley he is not in the opening night rotation, which is completely baffling. It's clear they have no plans for him in the future, and yet passed on potential deals at last year's deadline and this summer based on value. Instead, they chose to bring him back but not play him, a move completely contradictory to their value argument. This is a case study in mismanagement by the Kings organization. Now, there's always the other side, right? Like, we don't know what those deals looked like for the Kings. Maybe they were absolutely horrendous deals, but like, it does seem like a really, really bad case for this Kings team. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get any better, honestly.
No.
I mean,
How much does this
they
scare
have
you
to.
if you're like Therese Halliburton right now? Like, you're Therese.
Yeah.
This is your team for the next 4 years at least, if not the next like 7 years. Like, how much does that scare you as a player?
Well, it's terrifying, especially because like if there was a guy that this was supposed to work out for, I know that like top 10 picks don't work out all the time, but a number 2 pick as promising as his like that year that like I mean, and a lot of people know who watched him at Duke that season. It was like, dude, holy shit! Like, come on.
Yeah.
And then you felt like it was a home run getting into the Kings to draft him along with De'Aaron Fox and then Buddy Hield alongside him. Felt like that trio was going to start to take off, and now you have an even more promising player. I guess. I mean, for me, in Tyrese Halliburton, who looked fantastic last year. Now, if you're him, you're like, if this is how they're going to treat me when it comes to be my time, like I want out now, kind of thing. So I don't know. It's going to be really hard for this Sacramento Kings team to bounce back from this, and I just don't think that they're going to be any better than last year.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Someone asked when is Fox up for a new contract? Not for a while. He signed that 5-year deal last year.
Yep,
I think the next time he needs to get re-signed is like 2026
a long
probably.
time.
Would yeah, it's
Yep.
it's a while. You don't have to worry about the Aaron Fox. I think the thing you do have to worry about right now is what's going to happen with Tyrese Halliburton once that rookie contract is up, because that's going to make things really interesting and gonna make this whole team interesting. I'm interested to see what, because I feel a little invested in Marvin Bagley just because I do believe he was a really solid player. I feel like he was very similar. He was like Zion Williamson light when he was at Duke. Like he was dynamic. He was absolutely insane athletically. He was dunking on kids. He was rebounding like crazy. Like Marvin Bagley was an absolute animal at Duke. And to see like the beginning of his career wasted away, I hope they just trade him away and he goes to a good team or a team that can feature him in some regard, because I think he can be a really good player. Hell, the Oklahoma City Thunder should trade for him and use him as a little project. I'm sure you can get him for really cheap right now. I'm 100% sure
Yeah,
of
you
that.
can. So if you're Marvin Bagley, I think you just want to play basketball. That's
You
really
just
what it
want to
comes
prove your
down to.
point, man. I think that
Yeah,
yeah, I think you just want to prove your point.
because like money is money, and I understand like the agent's job is to get you the deal. But at the end of the day, like we've seen this several times in the league in any sport. Just send the guy to a new place to give him some, a different change of scenery. He should be all right. Like I think there are spots to where that this can happen. I mean, I think that um, the Thunder makes sense. Like the Magic makes sense. Like they're not going to be good teams because
Yeah.
all the good teams have guys that are locked up in those spots. So he just needs to change the scenery, and I think that I don't think he's going to be on the Kings much longer. But at the end of the day, I mean, they've said that they don't really want to trade him. So who knows what's going to happen?
Absolutely baffling. All right, let's move on to the next segment, around the bases. Talk a little bit about what happened in the MLB last night. We saw the Astros end up winning because of a late run in the ninth. We saw the Dodgers end up winning because of the Charles Barkley curse. Did you see that happen on television last night?
He did. He
Yeah,
did.
that was pitiful, man. The fact that I'm sure Atlanta fans are very, very mad at Charles Barkley right now. But what game do you want to talk about first? And you can start talking about it.
Yeah, we could talk about the Astros Red Sox game. I turned this game on when it was 2-1 in the third, and then it was 2-1 in the sixth, and then it was 2-1 in the seventh, and then I was like, all right, I'm kind of invested now. I'll watch because it got tied up at 2-2 in the eighth, and I was like, all right, sweet. I mean, like this could be the make or break point of the series, and then the Astros go in and take seven in the ninth inning. And I was like, all right, I'm done watching for now. I'll tune in
Yeah.
tomorrow because it's just like, all right, like whatever. Like at a certain point, um, they just stopped. They couldn't stop hitting. They couldn't stop, and there's nothing that the Boston Red Sox could do to change that. So I'm guessing, like I don't know. I did not expect it. I thought that they had a good game plan up to that point. The last guy I would have expected it to happen to would be Eovaldi. So I guess walk me through what you thought about that move. I know that Whitlock came in and played pretty well. He gave up a run in the eighth, but he had already gone 2 innings. So like, what were they supposed to do in that situation after using Ottavino already in the previous inning?
I mean, it just comes to down to why I think the AL side is going to be so outmatched no matter who comes out of the NL side.
Sure.
Because look at who they ended off with in this series, right? Like you had Pavetta go 5, looked really great through those 5 innings. Not a complaint in the world about what Pavetta did. Josh Taylor looked good through his point 2. Ottavino, don't know why he only pitched point 1, but he only went point 1. Then you had Whitlock, looked pretty decent throughout 2. And then you have Eovaldi and Martin Perez come in. Like I know Martin Perez was kind of at the end of the game because of the fact that they were out of it and there was no chance that they were going to, well, there wasn't no chance, but most likely they weren't coming back from 9-2. But like Martin Perez, like come
Yeah.
like
Rough.
a gas can, man. Like, and Nathan Eovaldi being a closer, like I don't understand why he was in that situation, in all honesty. Like it didn't make much sense in my eyes. I don't know if the bullpen was kind of depleted after the last few days. I didn't feel like it was at a spot that it should have been depleted. I don't know. I think you could have gone with so many better options from Cora, and he just chose Nathan Eovaldi, and I think that was a terrible option.
Yeah, obviously they're kicking themselves now for this. The reason Perez was probably brought in was just because that's when you put in your worst pitcher, just because you
Yeah,
don't have to wasting another arm there. But yeah, it's unfortunate because the Red Sox are going to look back and now they have a tougher test in going back to Houston to try to finish this series when they could have. I know the game would have been tied still at 2-2 coming into the ninth, but they had their chance, and I think that they can still win, but they're going to look back at this spot specifically and remember how close they were to potentially, like if they won. We talked about it yesterday twice, where we said that this series was over if they won. So that was the game changing point to me. Now the series is tied. Now the series goes back to Houston. It's going to be, and this is another reason why I think this thing goes to 7 games.
Yeah, definitely looking like a 7 game series as of right now. Red Sox still need a win today to end up pushing this to 7 games, but I think it's going to be really juicy once you get back into Houston. Regardless, we're going back to Houston, right? We know that.
Yep.
Framber Valdez pitching today, good pitching matchup for him. I think it's a solid spot. I don't know who's pitching for the Red Sox off the top of my head.
It's
I do not.
yeah, it's Sale.
Okay, so Sale didn't do well, right, against this team. Was that game one where Sale got
That was
kind of
game
lit
one.
up?
He got lit up in the previous series. Uh,
Yeah. Sale went 2.2, allowed 5 hits and 1 earned run in game one.
yeah, I
So,
think that that's they kind of just wanted to get game one out of the way.
yeah.
I think that's kind of what it was. But
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I just want to say, can you imagine being an under better on this Red Sox game
Yikes.
for game 5 or game 4 and just like being like, yeah, I saw Bet Online put out this tweet. It was like under betters. Yes, I have this in the bag. Ninth inning comes around. Shit, I don't have this in the bag. I thought that was really funny. All right, other game that we need to talk about with the Dodgers and the Braves. Kind of talk about how the Braves were also in a position to put a nail in the coffin and just weren't able to get it done. All because of bullpen pitching. It seemed to be the topic of the day yesterday when it came to baseball. The bullpen kind of imploded on itself after once it came to the 8th and 9th inning. And Cody Bellinger looks like a postseason stud right now. So what are your thoughts on this Dodgers team? Can they come back even though they're in Atlanta?
Yeah. So for me, Atlanta, the Red Sox and the Braves are in the same position. Braves a little bit different, but they had their chance yesterday. I think that Walker Buehler is the best pitcher in the series that are left right now. The teams that are left, he's the best pitcher out of all of them. And the Braves were able to put up 7 hits and 4 earned runs on him in 3.2 innings.
Yep.
And that does not happen a lot. It happens like 5 times a year for Walker. And they were able to get to him in LA. Now, if you were to tell me that, you would expect the Braves to win.
Mm-hmm.
The Dodgers also used 8 relief pitchers after that, which just tells you how deep they are.
Yeah.
With a lot of huge names too. So, yep, the moral of the story is like, Morton did his job. It's just the bullpen was not solid last night, and you can blame it on one guy, I guess. Luke Jackson was the guy responsible for giving up 4 earned runs in the 8th inning, but I don't know. Is that really the only reason they lost? Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, definitely one of the reasons they lost was Luke Jackson, but definitely not the only reason they lost. They need to win. Like they need to win out. I think you go back to LA and you're gonna run into a little bit of a problem, in my opinion. So
Yep.
like you need to
Yep.
win this game and the next game and just close out the series if you want to be in the World Series for the Braves. And if not, then you're gonna let the Dodgers crawl back come game 6 and 7 when you're back in LA. So I don't know. Going to be interesting to see what happens in this series. I'm excited. Both of these games play today. Red Sox are at 5 p.m. Eastern. Dodgers are at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be another great series. So I'm super excited for it. All right, let's move on to our next segment, which is technical foul. All right, so here we go, Jared, because I know probably people have been waiting a little bit for me to get really mad right now, and I'm going to get a little pissed off. I felt like I was in a phenomenal spot coming into the fourth quarter of the Bucks game. I had, it wouldn't have mattered at the end of the night. I had Russell Westbrook, so I guess it really doesn't matter. But like, I had James Harden and Chris Middleton. Both of them were just lighting it up. And then the fourth quarter comes, and neither guy does shit for like a full 12 minutes. And this just goes to my Kevin Durant talk too, because if James Harden does anything in that fourth quarter, it at least slows Kevin Durant down a little bit to where he's not scoring 32 points, only a half a point over my bet. But like, neither one of these guys did anything come the fourth quarter. And oh my goodness, is it so infuriating to watch a whole fourth quarter go by and just your little blue guy on FanDuel just not move at all, actually move backwards because your guys aren't doing anything. Like it's absolutely insane to me that neither one of them did. I mean, I'm sure they got some stats, but like I honestly did not see a change in their scores that much. And I felt like they were non-existent on the floor when I was watching the game. Like I just felt like they weren't there, and it just blew my mind the fact that neither one of them did very well in the fourth quarter. So like fourth quarter woes, that's my problem. Also the fact that like I talked about Grayson Allen being a great play, just didn't end up playing him because I went somewhere else. I had LeBron in the lineup, ended up pivoting off of LeBron. It's an early reminder to me that you need to stick with your gut in NBA. You need to stick with your gut in
Yep.
every sport, and I should have stuck with my gut. That's my main advice to you today. Stick with your gut. Whatever you have right now, as long as there's no crazy injury news, just leave it in.
The most tilting thing in the world to watch, like one of the superstar players who are usually priced above 9K, be at like 38 to 40 points through three quarters and then do nothing for the fourth quarter.
Nothing.
It
That's what
happens
Chris
so
Middleton was.
often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Chris Middleton did. Like he had 38 coming into the fourth, and I was like, this is great. Like I got a little bit lucky with the fact that Drew Holiday went down. So like Chris Middleton is in a spot to get more shots, to get more usage. He's now kind of that de facto point guard when Drew Holiday does go down. So like he should be in a really good spot throughout this last quarter. Didn't do anything. And then same thing goes for James. James was at like 50 FanDuel points too coming into the third. So I was like, "Oh, he's going to put up 60 this game. Like this is fantastic. I am in a great spot." No, not in a great spot. Doesn't matter because both of them just don't decide not to show up for the fourth. So it is what it is. Just a lot of tilting things about yesterday, but that's okay. You're gonna bounce back today, and then I get to bounce back on Friday, which I'm excited for. Um,
Yep.
any technical fouls that you have? This is our new flag on the play segment, by the way, guys. So we're changing it to an NBA side because we're in the NBA now. So
No, actually, I don't really have much outside of people disrespecting the books. That's my
there you
pick.
go. That's a
Uh,
good tech right there.
we have some breaking news though for tonight's NBA slate.
Oh,
Uh,
juicy already.
yeah, yep. Jalen Brown is going to play, and the Celtics also released their starting lineup already. So that's how confident they feel in those guys playing tonight in the
Wow.
Garden. So Celtics will start Smart, Brown, Tatum, Grant Williams, and Robin Williams on Wednesday.
That's crazy starting lineup. That is not what I expected
It
them
is
to roll today.
not what I
Uh,
started doing. Yeah,
Robert Williams as the starting center. They do have Al Horford now, right? Like I'm not
they do. They do. I
imagining.
think he was a guy. He was also on COVID protocols though, so I don't know if he got cleared or
Okay.
not.
So maybe Al Horford was oh, Al Horford's already officially out. Yeah, okay. So
Okay.
I sound like an idiot. Yeah, I that's a very interesting lineup. That is again, like I said, not expecting them to roll that out, but I think it still is a good starting lineup and going to be interesting to see how they match up with the Knicks. And if Tatum is at the you said Tatum was at the 3, right?
That's correct.
So if Tatum's at the maybe Grant Williams slides to the 3. I'm not going to make any calls. I'm not going
Yeah.
to do much until I get a little bit of research in because I have a feeling that I am going to end up probably providing a bonus GPP lineup today just because I can't keep my hands off of NBA. But we'll see what happens. All right.
So the one thing before we move on for
Yeah.
DFS, and I know we can't talk too much DFS because there's really no point of talking about it too early here. But the one thing I noticed is that this slate, if this is any indication on how dual eligibility is going to go, holy shit, this is going to be a fun season because I saw like 40 guys already that have multiple eligibility, including like almost everybody on this Boston Celtics roster.
I think they're going to be super generous with it to start out the year just because they've never done it before, and I think that could change come like halfway through the
Sure,
season. But we'll just have
I
to
could.
see. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Okay, let's do underdog mentality here, Jared. Luckily, we have a sport every day now that we can do underdog mentality from. We don't have to do it from from just NFL or just anything else. So
Yeah,
give me your favorite underdog play on the NBA slate tonight.
yeah, it's going to be great. This is definitely going to bite me in the ass later, but I'm going to do it right now just because I like it a lot. Give me Washington Wizards plus 118 against Toronto tonight.
There you go. I can get behind it. Give me Rockets plus 205 money line. Let's hit it. I think that
Ooh.
Rockets have a chance to run in this game. I don't think
Yeah.
the Timberwolves are all that great. I know Will Harsh is going to get really mad at me, but I think Rockets plus 205 is juicy, so I can totally get behind that. All right, closing thoughts. Let's get out of here, Jared. Anything else that you want to say before we do get out of here, though?
Yeah, we'll be back here in about an hour for the NFL stream. We're gonna take Josh and I do our game today, as well as a few other things. It's worth also noting we didn't get to touch on it too much today, but since it's not really a football day, we didn't get to it. But the Browns announced that Baker Mayfield will not start on Thursday night, and they're going to pass the torch to Chase Daniel for this game. That's going to be even grosser than it was before, and I'm really excited to leave a lot of money on the table Thursday night.
Yeah, that's you made the joke with Kai because Kai jumped in with us earlier this morning saying that there's probably going to be 8,000 left on the table, and that's with taking the 5 best players on each team. So it's going to be a good time to watch some Thursday night football this week. We're definitely getting back to those ugly Thursday night games again, which it's
Oh yeah.
interesting, man. It's an interesting time in the NFL. All right, let's get out of here. I have no final thoughts except for thanking our sponsor in BetOnline.ag. Remember, guys, you can bet on BetOnline wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you're in a state that doesn't allow betting. It doesn't matter if you're in a state that allows betting. You can still go to betonline.ag, go sign up, and you can end up betting on our Underdog Mentality picks. You can bet on basically anything you can think of. And we have some interesting odds boosters today too. We have a cross sport odds booster that has the Red Sox, the Celtics, and the Bruins to win, all Boston teams, and it's plus 700. Was plus 580, now plus 700. You have a cross sport booster for the Philadelphia Flyers and the Philadelphia 76ers. That was plus 260, now plus 325. You can get Luka Doncic to win a regular season MVP boosted to plus 600. There's going to be some more NBA boosters too, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. I think that they do an absolutely amazing job of putting the player first. You know, you get quick withdrawals with Bet Online. You can use these odds boosters. You can make your own player props. There's really no one that does it like Bet Online does it.
That Boston thing, that the line for all of Boston teams is really scary. So if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
the Boston Bruins are the only team that are actually favored. I mean, I guess you could say Chris Sale's
Ooh.
a little bit favored too, but like, man, if you can get that's going to be the most tilting thing ever because you got to rely on the Celtics to win in New York. That's going to be very interesting to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch all of this play out. Watch those odds boosters play out. And, you know, like I said, it doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter if you're somewhere that you can't bet in or you're in a state where you can't bet. Doesn't matter if you're a state where you can bet. You can still go to betonline.ag. You can deposit there. Use the link that way so you get the bonus as well because you get a bonus for signing up with the link that was just put in the Twitch chat. And they'll take care of you over at BetOnline. Jared, let's get out of here, man. We have an NFL show coming up in just an hour, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. And as always, my name is Joshua Reimer. Good morning and good skill.